Language Foundations Vocabulary Flashcards, helping you achieve understanding.
A very slender natural or synthetic fiber. A necklace made by stringing objects together. A strand of pearls. Bring to the ground. Leave stranded or isolated with little hope of rescue. A pattern forming a unity within a larger structural whole. He tried to pick up the strands of his former life. A poetic term for a shore, as the area periodically covered and uncovered by the tides. A street in West Central London famous for its theatres and hotels. Drive, a vessel, ashore. Line consisting of a complex of fibers or filaments that are twisted together to form a thread or a rope or a cable. A very slender natural or synthetic fiber. A very slender natural or synthetic fiber. A thread-like structure, as a chain-like series of cells. A thin wire, usually tungsten, that is heated white-hot by the passage of an electric current. The stalk of a stamen. British biochemist, born in Germany, who isolated and purified penicillin, which had been discovered in 1928 by Sir Alexander Fleming, 1906 to 1979. A necklace made by stringing objects together. Chemistry, a series of linked atoms, generally in an organic molecule. A series of hills or mountains. A series of things depending on each other as if linked together. The chain of command. A linked or connected series of objects. A chain of daisies. Anything that acts as a restraint. A series of, usually metal, rings or links fitted into one another to make a flexible ligament. A unit of length. Business. A number of similar establishments, stores or restaurants or banks or hotels or theaters, under one ownership. Connect or arrange into a chain by linking. Fasten or secure with chains. Thread on or as if on a string. String pearls on a string. Add as if on a string. String these ideas together. A sequentially ordered set of things or events or ideas in which each successive member is related to the preceding. A string of islands. A tie consisting of a cord that goes through a seam around an opening. He pulled the drawstring and closed the bag. Move or come along. A necklace made by stringing objects together. A string of beads. A lightweight cord. Cosmology. A hypothetical one-dimensional subatomic particle having a concentration of energy and the dynamic properties of a flexible loop. Stringed instruments that are played with a bow. The strings played superlatively well. A collection of objects threaded on a single strand. A linear sequence, as of characters, words, proteins, etc. A tightly stretched cord of wire or gut, as a part of an instrument or a tennis racket. A tough piece of fiber in vegetables, meat, or other food, especially the tough fibers connecting the two halves of a bean pod. Provide with strings. String my guitar. Remove the stringy parts of. String beans. Stretch out or arrange like a string. String together. Tie or fasten with a string. String the package. Material in the top layer of the surface of the earth in which plants can grow, especially with reference to its quality or use. The part of a scene, or picture, that lies behind objects in the foreground. He posed her against a background of rolling hills. A rational motive for a belief or action. The grounds for their declaration. Hit or reach the ground. A relation that provides the foundation for something. Cover with a primer. Apply a primer to. A connection between an electrical device and a large conducting body, such as the Earth, which is taken to be at zero voltage. Fix firmly and stably. Use as a basis for, found on. Bring to the ground. The storm grounded the ship. The solid part of the Earth's surface. He dropped the logs on the ground. The loose soft material that makes up a large part of the land surface. The first or preliminary coat of paint or size applied to a surface. A position to be won or defended in battle, or as if in battle. They gained ground step by step. A relatively homogeneous percept extending back of the figure on which attention is focused. Art. The surface, as a wall or canvas, prepared to take the paint for a painting. Confine or restrict to the ground. After the accident, they grounded the plane and the pilot. Connect to a ground. Ground the electrical connections for safety reasons. Hit a ground ball. He grounded to the second baseman. Hit onto the ground. Instruct someone in the fundamentals of a subject. Place or put on the ground. Throw to the ground in order to stop play and avoid being tackled behind the line of scrimmage. Hit or reach the ground. Bring to the ground. Of dark brownish to purplish red. Leave stranded or isolated with little hope of rescue. The travelers were marooned. A dark purplish red to dark brownish red color. An exploding firework used as a warning signal. A person who is stranded, as on an island. When the tide came in, I was a maroon out there. Leave stranded on a desert island without resources. The mutinous sailors were marooned on an island. Any of several elongated, thread-like cells, especially a muscle fiber or a nerve fiber. The inherent complex of attributes that determines a person's moral and ethical actions and reactions. A slender and greatly elongated substance capable of being spun into yarn. Coarse, indigestible plant food low in nutrients. Its bulk stimulates intestinal peristalsis. A leather-like material made by compressing layers of paper or cloth. Any of several elongated, thread-like cells, especially a muscle fiber or a nerve fiber. The inherent complex of attributes that determines a person's moral and ethical actions and reactions. A slender and greatly elongated substance capable of being spun into yarn. A leather-like material made by compressing layers of paper or cloth. Jewelry consisting of a cord or chain, often bearing gems, worn about the neck as an ornament, especially by women. Material in the top layer of the surface of the earth in which plants can grow, especially with reference to its quality or use. The land had never been plowed. The territory occupied by a nation. He returned to the land of his birth. A politically organized body of people under a single government. An industrialized land. United States inventor who incorporated Polaroid film into lenses and invented the one-step photographic process, 1909 to 1991. Extensive landed property, especially in the country, retained by the owner for his own use. The family owned a large estate on Long Island. Reach or come to rest. The bird landed on the highest branch. Bring into a different state. This may land you in jail. The people who live in a nation or country. Arrive on shore. The ship landed in Pearl Harbor. Cause to come to the ground. The pilot managed to land the airplane safely. Agriculture considered as an occupation or way of life. There's no work on the land anymore. The solid part of the Earth's surface. The plane turned away from the sea and moved back over land. Shoot at and force to come down. The enemy landed several of our aircraft. Territory over which rule or control is exercised. He made it the law of the land. A domain in which something is dominant. A land of make-believe. Bring ashore. The drug smugglers landed the heroin on the beach of the island. Deliver a blow. He landed several blows on his opponent's head. The land on which real estate is located. He built the house on land leased from the city. Reduce in population. Providing no shelter or sustenance. The desolate surface of the moon. Leave someone who needs or counts on you. Leave in the lurch. Cause extensive destruction or ruin utterly. Crushed by grief. Depressed and desolate of soul. A feeling of extreme emotional intensity. Leave behind empty. Move out of. Stop maintaining or insisting on, of ideas or claims. He abandoned the thought of asking for her hand in marriage. Leave someone who needs or counts on you. Leave in the lurch. The trait of lacking restraint or control. Reckless freedom from inhibition or worry. She danced with abandon. Give up with the intent of never claiming again. Forsake, leave behind. We abandoned the old car in the empty parking lot. Desert. A cause, a country or an army, often in order to join the opposing cause, country, or army. If soldiers deserted Hitler's army, they were shot. Leave someone who needs or counts on you. Leave in the lurch. The mother deserted her children. Arid land with little or no vegetation. Leave behind. The students deserted the campus after the end of exam period. Usually plural. A person's deservingness of or entitlement to reward or punishment. Leave someone who needs or counts on you. Leave in the lurch. The visual appearance of something or someone. A perceptual structure. Make something, usually for a specific function. Shape a figure. A concrete representation of an otherwise nebulous concept. Any spatial attributes, especially as defined by outline. He could barely make out their shapes. The state of good health, especially in the phrases in condition, or in shape, or out of condition, or out of shape. shape or influence, give direction to. Alternative names for the body of a human being. The spatial arrangement of something is distinct from its substance. Geometry is the mathematical science of shape. The supreme headquarters that advises NATO on military matters and oversees all aspects of the Allied Command Europe. Give shape or form to. Shape the dough. A customary way of operation or behavior. They changed their dietary pattern. A perceptual structure. A visual pattern must include not only objects but the spaces between them. Something intended as a guide for making something else. A pattern for a skirt. A decorative or artistic work. The path that is prescribed for an airplane that is preparing to land at an airport. The traffic patterns around O'Hare are very crowded. Something regarded as a normative example. Graphical representation, in polar or Cartesian coordinates, of the spatial distribution of radiation from an antenna as a function of angle. Plan or create according to a model or models. A model considered worthy of imitation. The American Constitution has provided a pattern for many republics. Form a pattern. These sentences pattern like the ones we studied before. The visual appearance of something or someone. A perceptual structure. The composition presents problems for students of musical form. The phonological or orthographic sound or appearance of a word that can be used to describe or identify something. The inflected forms of a word can be represented by a stem in a list of inflections to be attached. Make something, usually for a specific function. Any spatial attributes, especially as defined by outline. Establish or impress firmly in the mind. A body of students who are taught together. Create, as an entity. Social groups form everywhere. Biology. A group of organisms within a species that differ in trivial ways from similar groups. A category of things distinguished by some common characteristic or quality. Sculpture is a form of art. A life-size dummy used to display clothes. Develop into a distinctive entity. Alternative names for the body of a human being. The spatial arrangement of something is distinct from its substance. To compose or represent. This wall forms the background of the stage setting. Give shape or form to. Form the young child's character. Physical chemistry. A distinct state of matter in a system. Matter that is identical in chemical composition and physical state and separated from other material by the phase boundary. A mold for setting concrete. They built elaborate forms for pouring the foundation. An ability to perform well. He was at the top of his form. An arrangement of the elements in a composition or discourse. The essay was in the form of a dialogue. A particular mode in which something is manifested. His resentment took the form of extreme hostility. A printed document with spaces in which to write. He filled out his tax form. Assume a form or shape. The water formed little beads. Arrive on shore. Support by placing against something solid or rigid. Shore and buttress an old building. A beam or timber that is propped against a structure to provide support. Serve as a shore to. The river was shored by trees. The land along the edge of a body of water. A course of reasoning aimed at demonstrating a truth or falsehood. The methodical process of logical reasoning. I can't follow your line of reasoning. A slight depression or fold in the smoothness of a surface. His face has many lines. Mechanical system in a factory whereby an article is conveyed through sites at which successive operations are performed on it. A connected series of events or actions or developments. Historians can only point out those lines for which evidence is available. The road consisting of railroad track and roadbed. A conceptual separation or distinction. There is a narrow line between sanity and insanity. A succession of notes forming a distinctive sequence. A conductor for transmitting electrical or optical signals or electric power. The principal activity in your life that you do to earn money. He's not in my line of business. Make a mark or lines on a surface. Draw a line. Often plural, a means of communication or access. Lines of communication were set up between the two firms. The descendants of one individual. His entire lineage has been warriors. Space for one line of print, 1 column wide and 1/14 inch deep, used to measure advertising. A short personal letter. Drop me a line when you get there. A telephone connection. Be in line with, form a line along. Trees line the riverbank. The maximum credit that a customer is allowed. A particular kind of product or merchandise. A nice line of shoes. A pipe used to transport liquids or gases. A pipeline runs from the wells to the seaport. A commercial organization serving as a common carrier. Acting in conformity. In line with. A formation of people or things one behind another. The line stretched clear around the corner. A formation of people or things one beside another. The line of soldiers advanced with their bayonets fixed. A fortified position, especially one marking the most forward position of troops. They attacked the enemy's line. A length, straight or curved, without breadth or thickness, the trace of a moving point. A mark that is long relative to its width. He drew a line on the chart. A single frequency, or very narrow band, of radiation in a spectrum. A spatial location defined by a real or imaginary unidimensional extent. Cover the interior of. Line the gloves. Fill plentifully. Line one's pockets. In games or sports, a mark indicating positions or bounds of the playing area. Mark with lines. Sorrow had lined his face. Persuasive but insincere talk that is usually intended to deceive or impress. Let me show you my etchings as a rather worn line. Reinforce with fabric. Lined books are more enduring. Something, as a cord or rope, that is long and thin and flexible. A washing line. Text consisting of a row of words written across a page or computer screen. The letter consisted of 3 short lines. One of many contractile filaments that make up a striated muscle fiber. An aggressive remark directed at a person like a missile and intended to have a telling effect. A subsidiary point facing opposite from the main point that makes an arrowhead or spear hard to remove. One of the parallel filaments projecting from the main shaft of a feather. Provide with barbs. Barbed wire. The pointed part of barbed wire. One of two identical strands into which a chromosome splits during mitosis. Filaments from a web that was spun by a spider. A dense, elaborate spider web that is more efficient than the orb web. A fabric so delicate and transparent as to resemble a web of a spider. Characterized by unusual lightness and delicacy. Gossamer shading through his playing. So thin as to transmit light. Gossamer cobwebs. Filaments from a web that was spun by a spider. A gauze fabric with an extremely fine texture. Any of the thread-like filaments forming the mycelium of a fungus. One of many contractile filaments that make up a striated muscle fiber. One of many contractile filaments that make up a striated muscle fiber. A sterile, simple or branched filament or hair borne among sporangia. May be pointed or clubbed. Any of various slender filaments that function as roots in mosses and ferns and fungi, etc.
Become our student and get access to effective and free educational materials. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to become a part of our growing YouTube community and to learn English effectively.